Russian Defense Ministry claimed to have defeated a large-scale Ukrainian attack in Donetsk Oblast on the morning of June 5 in the first announcement of what could be the start of the long-awaited Ukrainian counteroffensive. The ministry alleged that Ukrainian forces had launched a major offensive in 5 sectors of the front in the southern Donetsk area, using 6 mechanized and 2 tank battalions. According to the report, Ukraine allegedly lost over 250 personnel, 16 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, and 21 armored fighting vehicles. Later on June 5, Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said that Ukrainian forces were shifting to offensive actions in some areas, adding that the move was part of the country's general defensive operation that started on February 24, 2022. According to Maliar, Ukraine's military is successfully advancing near Donetsk Oblast's Bakhmut along a fairly wide front, capturing the dominant heights. The Bakhmut area reportedly remains the epicenter of hostilities. Ukrainian troops have advanced 200 to 1,600 meters toward the villages of Pereskovivka and Orikovo-Vasilivka north of Bakhmut and 100 to 700 meters toward Ivanivsk and Klishchivka south of Bakhmut, according to the Deputy Defense Minister. The Ukrainian official also reported fighting of local importance in the country's south, which is seen as the most likely direction for Ukraine's major breakthrough. She added that Russian reports on the alleged start of the long-awaited Ukrainian counteroffensive were meant to divert attention from Moscow's losses near Bakhmut. Earlier on June 4, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense released a video saying that the beginning of the counteroffensive would not be announced. On June 3, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reiterated Ukraine's preparedness for a counteroffensive. Ukraine has likely created a network of pro-Ukrainian saboteurs on Russia's territory to carry out strategic drone attacks, in particular, the one that targeted the Kremlin in early May, CNN reported on June 5. According to CNN, several people familiar with U.S. intelligence said that pro-Ukrainian agents and operatives well-trained in this kind of warfare are being supplied with Ukrainian-made drones. Kyiv likely used well-practiced smuggling routes along the Ukrainian-Russian border to send drones or drone components to Russia, CNN wrote. According to the publication's sources, the frequency of drone strikes on Russian territory seems to be the culmination of months of effort by Ukraine to set up the infrastructure for such sabotage. Ukraine's security service neither confirmed nor denied their involvement when asked by CNN for comment. Multiple isolated attacks have occurred within Russian territory since the start of the all-out war on February 24, 2022. These attacks appear to primarily focus on disrupting the infrastructure that supports the logistics of the Russian military. Some of these attacks hit Moscow, like the May 3 drone strike on Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's Kremlin residence and the May 30 barrage, reportedly damaging several high-rise buildings in the Russian capital. Ukraine has not claimed responsibility for most of these attacks. Belgium will ask Kyiv for clarifications on reports that Russian anti-Kremlin militias had allegedly used Belgian-made weapons provided to Ukraine during the Belgorod Oblast incursion, Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo said, Reuters reported on June 5. Earlier, The Washington Post wrote that Russian anti-government groups fighting on Ukraine's side had purportedly used rifles made by Belgium and the Czech Republic as well as tactical vehicles originally sent to Ukraine by the US and Poland in their May 22 cross-border raid on Russia's western region. Our defense ministry and its intelligence agencies have started an investigation and are asking for information to determine what has happened exactly, De Croo told Belgium's Radio 1, as cited by Reuters. European weapons are delivered to Ukraine under the condition that they are used on Ukrainian territory with the purpose of defending that territory. And we have strict controls in place to see that this is the case, he said. The New York Times also reported the anti-Kremlin militias having used American-made armored vehicles during their operations in Russia. The article claimed that the groups appear to have used International Max Pro's models of mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, MRAPs, known to be provided to Ukraine only by Washington. In a comment to Suspil news outlet, Ukraine's military intelligence spokesperson Andriy Yusov said that any questions on the possible use of Western-made weapons by the militias should be addressed to the Russian Volunteer Corps and the Freedom of Russia Legion as they operate autonomously on Russian territory. Out of the 50,195 bomb shelters inspected by the authorities on June 5, up to one-third are closed or unsuitable for use, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Internal Affairs. The National Police, the State Emergency Service, and local authorities reportedly examined 79% of all shelters in Ukraine. Of those already examined, 11,644, 23%, were unsuitable for use, and 4,679, 9%, were closed. In Kyiv, the authorities have checked 2,156 bomb shelters, which is 48% of the total number in the capital. The current results show that of all the shelters examined in Kyiv, 804, 37%, were unsuitable, and 137, 6%, were closed, leaving only 1,215, 57%, bomb shelters open and ready to receive people. On June 1, 3 civilians were killed as a result of a Russian missile strike against Kiev while trying to reach an inaccessible bomb shelter. It happened in the city's Desnyansky district, where Russian missile debris fell on a clinic and a residential building. The incident sparked outrage toward the authorities as they did not ensure the proper functioning of the civil protection system. Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko blamed the head of the medical facility and the Desnyansky district head Dmytro Ratnikov. The Kiev City Prosecutor's Office and police began an investigation of the facility and questioned its management. In an unexpected move that left many commentators frustrated, an arrest hearing on June 3 appeared to place most of the responsibility for the tragedy on the elderly clinic's night guard. President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered Strategic Industries Minister Oleksandr Kamyshin and Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko to conduct a full audit of all bomb shelters in Ukraine. Russia shot down an Iranian drone operated by Moscow's own troops in the annexed Crimean Peninsula, according to new reports. Sergei Aksyonov, the Kremlin-backed leader of Crimea, said that an enemy unmanned aerial vehicle had been jammed in the eastern part of the annexed territory. Aksyonov shared an image of the downed drone. Pro-Kremlin Telegram channels posted footage of an airborne drone catching fire. However, other reports suggested the drone was an Iranian-made Mohaja-6 surveillance drone, which is also capable of carrying weapons, operated by Russia. Anton Gashenko, an advisor to Ukraine's internal ministry, wrote on Twitter on Wednesday that it appeared Russian forces took down their own Iranian Mohaja-6 drone. Good job! Rob Lee, a senior fellow with the Foreign Policy Research Institute think tank, said on social media that what looked to be a Mohaja-6 operated by Russia could have been downed by Russian air defenses. Reports indicate it was a friendly fire incident, the Ukraine-focused weapons monitoring account Ukraine Weapons Tracker added on Twitter. Drones have played a key role in Russian and Ukrainian wartime operations. Gashenko, speaking in February, told Newsweek that drones were the super weapon here, adding, "This war is a war of drones." Russia has used Iranian-made drones to target Ukraine's critical infrastructure. Shahid 131 and -136 UAVs, also known as kamikaze drones, have become a familiar sight across Ukraine. A report published by the U.S. think tank, the Center for Naval Analyses, concluded late last month that Russia's domestic drone production cannot keep up with the demand for UAVs in Ukraine. Samuel Bendet, a co-author of the CNA report, previously told Newsweek that there are several key issues in Moscow's military-industrial complex, including how Russia relies on imported technology which the domestic tech still cannot readily substitute. On Monday, Ukraine's military said it had intercepted 6 out of a total of 8 Shahid drone strikes by Russian forces overnight. The previous day, Moscow launched 5 Shahid drones at Ukrainian targets from the Bryansk border region, Kiev's Air Force said in an update. Throughout May 2023, Russia made its most intense use to date of Shahid drones, launching over 200 attacks on Ukraine, the British Defense Ministry said on Monday. This is likely a Russian strategy of forcing Ukraine to use up its supplies of advanced air defense missiles, the government department said in an operational update posted to social media. Russia is unlikely to have been notably successful, the British Defense Ministry continued, adding Ukraine had intercepted at least 90% of the incoming drone attacks largely with jamming technologies and older air defense systems. The blowing up of the Nova Kakhovka Dam will delay an expected armored thrust in the area by Ukrainian forces, but military action in the preliminary stages of Kiev's counteroffensive continues across the front line. The route along the dam near Kherson was one the Ukrainians would have taken to move armor, like tanks, and heavy equipment. There were also plans for landings on islands downstream, where fierce clashes have been taking place for some time. The submerging of these pathways means that tactics are redrawn and troops and weapons repositioned. But Ukrainian forces, including Marines, are continuing unaffected with cautious advances on both the southern and eastern front line in small numbers. The operations are taking place largely without artillery and armored support, and appear to be testing Russian defenses to probe for weaknesses. Despite Moscow's claims to have destroyed advanced Western tanks, there is no evidence of large numbers of German Leopards or British Challengers as yet being deployed. The newly formed brigades armed with them are being held back outside Russian artillery range, shielded by AAA, anti-aircraft artillery, from drones, warplanes and missiles. The focus of the Ukrainian probes are in the Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions, where they have advanced as far as possible, only turning back, on a number of occasions, when coming under fire. This is being portrayed in the Kremlin-backed media as the Ukrainian counteroffensive failing. Some Russian commanders are, however, beginning to see an emerging pattern, signaling a new set of evolving tactics. Alexander Khodakovsky, commander of the paramilitary Vostok Battalion, wrote on Telegram, "Instead of an armored herd in numbers exceeding the number of the defenders, Russian forces, of Novodonetsk, the enemy dashes on light armor as close as possible to the village, dismounts the infantry intended for the assault, and then the light armor returns for a new batch. After dropping off the troops, the armored personnel carriers retreat and provide fire support. The soldiers, or marines, then fan out, making themselves harder for artillery to hit, gather intelligence, inflict enemy casualties when possible, and then fall back. Conducting such sorties in small numbers means a number of missions can be mounted in a comparatively short time," say Ukrainian commanders, finding out weaknesses while, it is hoped, tiring out Russian forces ahead of major operations get underway. Ukraine's 37th Marine Brigade seemed to have been particularly active. The brigade is at full strength, at around 2,000 strong, and have been carrying out sorties on American MATV armored trucks and French AMX-10 RC reconnaissance vehicles. On Sunday, the Kremlin announced that a large-scale offensive by the Ukrainians in the Donetsk Oblast had been repulsed. Video was produced purporting to show vehicles in a field under heavy fire. More than 300 troops had been killed and 16 tanks destroyed, claimed the Russians. Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, later updated enemy losses to 3,715 troops, 52 tanks, 207 armored fighting vehicles, 134 motor vehicles, 5 aircraft, 2 helicopters, 48 pieces of field artillery, and 53 unmanned aerial vehicles. Kyiv dismissed the claims, and they have also been rubbished by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the mercenary Wagner Group, who has become a trenchant critic of the Russian high command, saying they were wild and absurd fantasies, works of science fiction. Moscow pointed to the Ukrainian 23rd and 31st Mechanized Brigades as those who took part in what it termed the Battle of Donetsk. But neither of these are among the brigades that have been armed with the latest NATO weapons to carry out the main assault. After stating for months that it will not make any public statements on the offensive, Alexei Danilov, Secretary of National Security and Defense Council, said on Wednesday, "When all this will begin, it will be decided by our military. When we start the counteroffensive, everyone will know about it, they will see it." One senior Ukrainian security official said, "We have had journalists, even NATO officials asking, are you going to start it on the anniversary of D-Day, June 6th? We told them that, unfortunately, reality has to take precedence over symbolism. We have to get every preparation right, align everything. This is our big shot, we can't screw it up." Russian forces have lost 37 artillery systems and 13 tanks in a single day, according to Kyiv's military. Moscow's troops have lost a total of 3,640 artillery systems since the outbreak of full-scale war in February 2022, the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces said in an update on Wednesday. Artillery has played a crucial role in the operations of both sides throughout the ongoing war in Ukraine, becoming a cornerstone of military aid sent to Kyiv. The loss of 13 tanks in the previous 24 hours brings Moscow's total losses to 3,873, per Kyiv's count. Newsweek could not independently verify these figures from the General Staff and has contacted the Russian Defense Ministry for comment via email. According to the Dutch open-source outlet Oryx, Russia has lost 2,011 tanks in Ukraine since February 24, 2022. Of this number, 1,246 were destroyed and 544 captured by Ukraine, per the Defense Analysis website. However, this total only includes visually verified losses, and the true figure may be higher. Over 30 combat clashes took place over the last day, the General Staff said, as Ukraine's long-expected counteroffensive against Russian forces appears to be getting underway. It also comes as Kyiv and Moscow trade blame for the destruction of a key dam in South Ukraine on Tuesday. Damage to the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant, on Ukraine's Dnieper River in the Kherson region, led to massive flooding of nearby areas, the Washington-based Institute for the Study of War think tank said on Tuesday. The destruction of the dam could have grave and far-reaching consequences for thousands of people, the UN's aid chief said on Tuesday. People living on either side of the front line in southern Ukraine could face losing their homes, food supply, access to safe water, and their livelihoods, Martin Griffiths, the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, told the UN Security Council. Around 80 settlements are within the flood zone, Ukraine's military said on Wednesday. Around 2,700 houses have been flooded, and 1,300 people evacuated, Russian state media reported on Wednesday. The water from the reservoir also supplies the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest nuclear power facility. Under Russian control since the early days of the war, Ukrainian personnel have continued to staff the facility, which has frequently become caught in the frontline fire. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said that there was no immediate risk to the safety of the facility. The destruction of one of the largest water reservoirs in Ukraine is absolutely deliberate, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a post to social media on Wednesday. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said the breach of the dam was a large-scale act of sabotage planned in advance by Ukraine. We've seen the reports that Russia was responsible for the explosion at the dam, U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said on Tuesday, adding the U.S. could not conclusively say what caused the destruction. In the temporarily occupied areas of Kherson region, Russian invaders do not even try to help people who suffered from the blast of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant, HPP. President Volodymyr Zelensky wrote this on Telegram and published photos of flooded Kherson region. Russian terrorists have once again proved that they are a threat to everything living. The destruction of one of the largest water reservoirs in Ukraine is absolutely deliberate. At least 100,000 people lived in these areas before the Russian invasion. At least tens of thousands are still there, Zelensky noted. According to him, hundreds of thousands of people have been left without normal access to drinking water. Our services, all those who can help people, are already involved. But we can only help on the territory controlled by Ukraine. On the part occupied by Russia, the occupiers are not even trying to help people, the president said. This once again demonstrates the cynicism with which Russia treats the people whose land it has captured and what Russia really brings to Europe and the world, Zelensky stressed. As Ukrinform reported, on the night of June 6, the Russian forces blew up the dam of the Kakhovka HPP. The Kakhovka HPP can be restored. Evacuation of people from flooded areas continues.